the iQOO 12 and the OnePlus 12. Two brand new flagship smartphones fighting to get the love of consumers. So, which one should you buy? Let's find out. What's up guys, I'm Suman from Stein. So the iQOO 12 and the OnePlus 12 are the hottest smartphones right now because they are rocking the brand new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Now the iQOO 12 has already been launched in India and the OnePlus 12 is launching next month. And with these two launching, I had one thing in mind. Both are incredible smartphones, but which one should you buy? And I will be helping you make that decision. Now let me just tell you one thing. This is not an in-depth review or anything, but rather I have made your jobs easier. So instead of you guys going through hundreds of videos and blogs and things like that, I have done that and I have come up with this video, which is actually a summarized version of all that. And with this, you can make an informed decision and go with the smartphone which suits your needs. With that said, let me split this video into two. And the first part is going to be the similarities. Now, when you take a look at the similarities between both these smartphones, there are a few things. Number one, the processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Now, both are the same. There's no overclock, nothing like that. The same Adreno GPU. So, in terms of the processor, it is the same on both. Now, in terms of the operating system, you get Android 14, but with the respective UIs on both. Now, in terms of display, actually there are quite a lot of differences, but the similarities here are just the AMOLED display and the fact that it is an LTPO panel. And another similarity is that you get an equivalent RAM and storage option on both, and the storage here is UFS 4.0 on both. And funny thing, these are all the similarities both these smartphones share. So the performance is going to be more or less similar, but I'll talk about that at the end. With that said, let's talk about the differences because this is where your purchase decision is going to come. Now, when you take a look at the differences, there are quite a lot. Now, the OnePlus is on the heavier side at 220 grams, whereas the iQOO is lighter at 198. The OnePlus is again thicker, whereas the iQOO is just 8.4 millimeters thick. Now, in terms of the display size, iQOO has a 6.78 inch display, whereas the OnePlus has a 6.82 inch display. Again, a huge boy. Now, on the OnePlus, you get a 2K display, whereas on the iQOO, you get a 1.5K display. And the brightness on the OnePlus is 4500 nits. Now, this is the peak brightness. And on the iQOO, it is 3000 nits. Again, peak brightness. In terms of refresh rate, on the OnePlus, you get a 120 Hz refresh rate display, whereas on the iQOO, you get a 144 Hz display. And in terms of the USB, so the USB Type-C port on the OnePlus is USB 3.2, but sadly on the iQOO, it is just USB 2.0. Now, in terms of the battery capacity, the OnePlus has a bigger battery at 5400 mAh, whereas in the iQOO, it is 5000 mAh. And finally, in terms of the charging speeds, the OnePlus supports 100 watts charging and the iQOO supports up to 120 watts. Now, these are the significant differences between both these smartphones. But if you would have noticed, I haven't talked about the camera because when it comes to cameras, it is very subjective to the user. First of all, the global unit of the OnePlus 12 is not out, so there aren't really good camera samples. Of course, there are camera samples of the iQOO 12, but I need to compare both. So I am not going to be telling this has the best camera or this has the best camera, but let's go over the specs of both. Now, both have a 50 megapixel main camera. They have a 64 megapixel telephoto camera, but on the iQOO you get a 50 megapixel ultra wide, whereas on the OnePlus you get a 48 megapixel ultra wide. Now, in terms of selfie camera, the iQOO has a 16 megapixel selfie camera, whereas on the OnePlus you get a 32 megapixel selfie camera. Now, if you take a look at the main and the telephoto camera, both are same. Of course, there's a very slight difference in the aperture, but not going to make a huge difference. Both are going to be incredibly great at giving you really good background blur, but it all comes down to how good the processing is going to happen, how good iQOO has tuned their software, as well as how good OnePlus has tuned their software. It doesn't matter if you have Hasselblad or anything, I don't care about that, but it comes down to how well the images are tuned in terms of your software, how good the software processing is. That's what I mean by all this. Now of course there are camera samples for the iQOO 12, and if you go to Trakin Tech's iQOO 12 review, in the description page you can find the link to that. You can go check it out. But based on what I saw, the iQOO 12 is a really good camera, but actually without the OnePlus 12 I can't compare it, so I am not going to do that. So I'll just tell you one thing: when the OnePlus 12 global version is out, of course there will be huge camera comparisons and all those stuffs coming out. So what I would recommend is go to GSM Arena. They will have actual camera comparisons. You can go and compare both the images from the OnePlus 12 and the iQOO 12. So they will have similar images. You can even zoom and do stuff like that. So make sure you go check that out and make a decision just for the camera. Now I just split this video into the similarities and differences to actually make your buying decision easier. But before going into the conclusion, there are some things I want to tell to you. Number one, when you take a look at the differences, you would have noticed the OnePlus has a 2K display, 4500 nits peak brightness, USB 3.2, 5400 mAh battery, blah blah blah, things like that. Now on paper it looks better, it looks great, but to be honest, the differences you will notice in day-to-day life are going to be very less. To be honest, those are going to be super negligible. Now let's take for instance, the OnePlus has a 2K display, whereas the iQOO has a 1.5K display. Is it going to be a huge difference? Are you going to be able to view more stuff? No, to be honest, no. In such a small body, you are not going to see a huge difference. Trust me, 1.5K, 2K, you are not going to see a huge difference. Maybe 1080p 2K, yes, but 1.5K, 2K, not really. Now, even if you take a look at iQOO, for instance, it has a 144Hz display, and on the OnePlus you get a 120Hz display. Is it going to make a huge difference? Is it going to enhance your gaming? Are you going to become an amazing shooter? Probably not. And maybe from 60Hz to 120Hz you will see a difference. 90 to 120 or 90 to 144 you will, but between that 120 and 144Hz the gap is very small, so you are not going to see a huge difference. And even in terms of peak brightness, it doesn't matter if the OnePlus has a much higher peak brightness, because even if you're going out in the sun and you're increasing your brightness, you will be very comfortable at say 2000 nits or even 1600 nits. It is going to be totally viewable. Both the screens are going to be viewable, and both are amazing AMOLED displays, LTPO panels. So your viewing experience is going to be amazing. Just because it has 4500 nits doesn't mean it is a better display. But there are some things that matter. Now the OnePlus has a physically bigger battery, and since both are LTPO panels, battery life is going to be good. Now without testing, you really can't say it is going to be the best, but both are going to be really good. Now of course, if you're someone who wants that extra bit of battery life, say that extra 1 hour of battery life, and if that is crucial to you, then you should consider that extra 400 mAh battery, and with that comes weight, increased size, things like that. But if all that doesn't matter, then maybe you should consider the OnePlus 12 if battery is kind of a higher priority for you. Now for those who are concerned about the performance, both are rocking literally the same processor. Both have vapor chamber cooling. Now of course the sizes differ, but it's how well it is, the placement, how well it is designed, how well it is optimized, that is going to matter a lot. Now based on loads of reviews I watched about iQOO 12, they have done a great job. The phone gets only slightly warm, doesn't get hot, so the vapor chamber cooling there works. Now on the OnePlus 12, based on 1 or 2 videos I saw, that is still the same case for the OnePlus 12 also. It does get warm but not too hot, so it is comfortable to hold on. And considering the amount of power, the amount of heat generated, the vapor chamber cooling is doing a good job on both, I have to say. So based on the performance, both these smartphones are amazing flagship smartphones. But if you take a look at benchmarks, pure synthetic benchmarks, the iQOO kind of outperforms the OnePlus 12 by a small margin, and it has been consistent throughout. Now, if you're someone who really likes boasting about synthetic benchmarks, then you might like boasting about the iQOO 12's performance. And with that said, here's my conclusion. Both these smartphones are great performers, so let's keep that aside. Now, if you're someone who wants a lighter smartphone, a slightly smaller smartphone, I mean, both these are huge, but among these two, if you want the slightly smaller one, a little more comfortable one, a little more thinner one, then I would suggest you to go with the iQOO 12. But if you want that extra bit of battery life and you don't care about the size or weight, and if you want the biggest displays of both these, then I would suggest you to go with the OnePlus 12. And again, cameras are subjective. Once official camera samples are out, maybe I'll make a video on that so that you can get a better idea. But keep a lookout for camera samples of both these and make sure you compare them. But more than all these stuff, the main thing that matters is going to be the price. Now, the iQOO 12 is officially starting at 53,000 rupees in India, and for that price it is an amazing smartphone, and especially with bank offers you can get it for less than 50,000 rupees, which makes it an amazing flagship. But if you take a look at OnePlus, the OnePlus 11 launched at around 57,000 rupee for the 8GB version, and if they continue on the same trend, I might expect them to launch this at around 60,000 rupees. See, now I can just assume based on the previous year's pricing, but if it is for 60,000 rupees, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. You can straight away go with the iQOO 12 because performance wise both are going to be amazing, and it's much lighter, and it is a good package value for money. But if OnePlus is considering to launch this say at around 55 or 56,000, then you have to take into consideration all the points I mentioned before. Like, do you want the extra battery life, or do you want a thinner smartphone and lighter smartphone? And of course, cameras are subjective. Make sure you check that out before making a decision. So you have to consider all that if OnePlus 12 is priced around say 55 or 56,000 rupees. With that said, make sure you put down in the comments which smartphone you prefer. So thank you for watching, and this here is Suman signing off once again. Catch you later.